So the topic that we will be discussing today is polygyny and what scripture actually says about it and how Western culture has distorted our minds and our way of thinking as it relates to it. Hey, before we jump into it though, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And let's get scripture. Check out purposelyhere.com where you will find my self-published book. Purposelyhere.com also has exclusive merchandise for men, women, and kids. Purposelyhere.com is also available on your mobile devices. Stay tuned and enjoy the video. Sisters, today I want to speak directly to you. This message is for women who desire understanding rooted in scripture, not emotion alone. I'm not here to instruct men, correct men, or assume authority over men. Scripture gives order, and I respect that order. At the same time, when truth is spoken publicly, anyone may hear it. So if men are listening, they are not being taught by me. They are simply overhearing scripture being explained, and they can weigh it for themselves. The topic I'm addressing today is polygyny. One man having more than one wife, as it appears in the Bible. This is not about lust. This is not about modern relationship trends. This is not about rebellion against the Most High. It is about what scripture permits, regulates, and never condemns. And why culture has labeled something sinful that the Most High never did. I'm bringing this up because many women struggle with this topic, not because the Bible is unclear, but because we have been deeply shaped by Western thinking, emotionalism, fear of loss, and cultural ideas of fairness that are not rooted in scripture. If we are honest, many of us were never taught how to separate culture discomfort from sin, emotional reaction from divine law, tradition from scripture. So today, I'm speaking as an elder woman, not to provoke chaos, but to bring clarity. Because confusion creates resistance, but understanding creates peace. And with that foundation laid, let's start with something simple but necessary, the definition. Because if we don't define this correctly, everything else will be misunderstood. The correct biblical term is polygyny, one man with more than one wife. This matters because polygamy is often used loosely in modern culture to describe open relationships, sexual experimentation, or multiple partners without covenant or responsibility. None of that is biblical. Scripture never permits multiple husbands, sexual disorder, relational chaos. What scripture does show repeatedly is structured, lawful polygyny, regulated by the Most High's law. Clarity of language protects clarity of thought. If we misunderstand the term, we will misunderstand the entire conversation. Now, once we have the definition clear, this naturally brings us to the next question. Is it sin? And when we actually look at scripture, the answer is clear. Polygyny does not appear as a moral failure the Most High needed to correct. It appears as a household structure the Most High regulated. Abraham had more than one wife. Jacob had more than one wife. David had more than one wife. And the Most High still spoke to them, dealt with them, and even blessed them. In fact, the Most High says to David, I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom. The Most High does not give sin as a gift. When scripture wants to name sin, it does it plainly. Polygyny is never listed. That tells us this is not sin. It is something permitted, but weighty. But even with that being clear, this is where many women still struggle. It's not because of scripture, it's because of conditioning. Many women have been taught that polygyny is immoral, but that belief is rooted in fear. Fear of compromise, fear of abandonment, fear of not being chosen first. And culture reinforces this by teaching that fairness means exclusivity. But scripture doesn't operate on emotional fairness. It operates on order. The Most High created men and women differently with different roles and responsibility. And scripture never presents women in these structures as disposable. It protects them. So we have to understand this clearly. Emotional discomfort does not equal sin. And until we separate those two, we will always resist what we don't understand. And once we separate emotion from scripture, this leads us into something else that needs clarity. Understanding men correctly, because a lot of confusion comes from misunderstanding male responsibility. Men today are often told their nature is wrong, that leadership is toxic, that responsibility is control, that their capacity is something to suppress. So instead of being taught how to operate within the Most High's order, many are taught to reject it. And that's why some men deny polygyny, not because scripture denies it, but because culture pressures them to. But scripture shows that men who had multiple wives were not given freedom without weight. They were given more responsibility. So this helps us separate what is sinful from what is structured and what is irresponsible from what is actually permitted. And when we understand that responsibility, this brings us to another angle people often overlook, and that's purpose. Because polygyny in scripture was never just about desire, it was practical. These were times of war, famine, and instability. Households needed structure, provision, and protection, and polygyny allowed that. Isaiah even shows a time when multiple women seek one man, not out of desire, but survival. So this was not indulgence. This was order under pressure. Now, at this point, some people will say, well, that was just their culture. But this is where we have to be careful, because culture can explain context, but it cannot cancel what the Most High established. Scripture was given through a people, but it was not limited to a people. Truth does not expire based on location. So we can't dismiss something the Most High allowed just because it makes us uncomfortable. And that leads us right into another important distinction that has to be made. Permission versus command. Because scripture does not command polygyny, but it absolutely permits it. And that matters more than people realize. Because calling something sin that the Most High never called sin is adding to his word. Permission is not obligation, but permission still stands. Now, this is where we need to slow down and really be precise, because some will say, well, weren't there things allowed before that were later forbidden? Yes, but that does not apply here. The Most High does not change. What changes is how law is revealed. There were things that existed before law, and once law came, they were restricted. But polygyny is different. It was not just present before law. It was regulated within the law. And it was never later forbidden, not once. So calling it sin today is not biblical. It is cultural. And bringing this into today, this is why this conversation actually matters right now, because the conditions we see today are not new. Economic pressure is rising. Resources are being shared. Living is becoming more communal again. And scripture already accounted for that reality. So this is not outdated. This is understanding structure in times of pressure. And with all of that understood, this is where we have to bring everything together, because this was never just about polygyny by itself. This is about how we approach scripture. Polygyny is the topic, but scripture is the standard. Culture is not the authority. If the Most High regulated it, we must acknowledge it. If the Most High did not condemn it, we should not condemn it. And if correction is needed, it must come from scripture, not discomfort. Because when we align with the Most High's order, peace follows. Now, the Most High of peace himself give you peace always, by all means. All right, you all, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And as always, don't forget to check out my website, purposelyhere.com, where you can find my self-published books. Make sure you all are also hitting that notification button so that you can get all of my latest updates. All right, until next time, you all be safe and peace.